Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the 2022 House Representatives elections and the most recent forecast that we have seen for these races. So we're going to get right into it by taking a look at the plural vote House forecast. So I'm filming this on the 24th, my time. For some reason, they say it's been updated on the 25th, which I'm guessing they're either ahead of us because I'm actually filming this at I'll give you the exact time I'm filming this at 5:30 p.m. on July 24th. So that is actually well past midnight in the United Kingdom. So, if they're in Britain, if they're in Europe, if they're in Asia, it is July 25th. Or if the model just auto updates, they have that going as well. But, yeah, just to put that out there. So, taking a look at this model, this is a pretty interesting model to see. There are some interesting calls. And it does not take in the new congressional shapes, which is not ideal, but it is what would be projected if we were taking a look at the current congressional lines. So we're going to get right into it with that. First, I'm going to take a look at the House popular vote forecast based on weighted poll average. So right now, they have the Democratic Party winning. They essentially have the year being the Democrats winning by 1.2%. Now, for reference, the Democratic Party won the 2020 House elections by 3%. They won the 2018 ones by around 8.5%, as you can see. They actually lost the 2016 House popular vote by about a point. In 2014, they lost it by like 9. It was insane. Then going back to 2012, which is a pretty solid year for them, they won it by, I believe, 5%. Oh no, they only won it by a point. It was a crazy year in the House. They gained. There were a lot of flips. The Democrats did not gain seats, but they still failed to have control of the House that year. So, yeah. Now, to take a look at what we see over here. So, wait, this is the 2018 forecast. Oops. So, this has been pretty back and forth. So, at this time about a year ago, this was the previous forecast, which I'll show you in a second. At the Democrats' peak, at the beginning of October, the Democrats were on track to win the House by around 8 points. That would have been an incredible wave. That would have been, similar to 2018, where they would have picked up more seats, which was, truly an incredible feat for them. Now, after the election, though, but by around, Thanksgiving, I guess you could say Thanksgiving 2020, up to essentially after the Georgia runoffs, or, mid-Jan, essentially after Biden was inaugurated, the Republicans are actually favored to win the popular vote by as much as 4% at some point during the very beginning of January. So that is pretty incredible, and that really shows how elastic the American electorate is. And, the Democrats had a brief boost, so I think they were up by even 2% at one point, around 2%, beginning of May, late April. And now it's kind of stabilized around a 1.3% Democratic lead for this forecast, which is, not ideal for the Democrats, and I'll tell you why. So Democrats, as we know, have been very good at winning the popular vote in recent elections, and they do this pretty, they do this by winning big in California, winning big in New York, winning big in New Jersey, winning big in Illinois, and, the Republicans have, kind of said, okay, well, you can do that all you want, but it doesn't matter because of the Electoral College. And, in 2016, we saw that a Republican President, Donald Trump, he won the election while losing the popular vote. This is common knowledge. The Democrats do very well nationwide because they run up the score in California, New York, and Illinois. Now, the Republicans have in the past taken advantage of that, and they've been, well in certain swing states. Like in 2016, the Democrats, lost the 2020 election by 2016 election by 77,000 votes because they narrowly lost Michigan, narrowly lost Wisconsin, narrowly lost Pennsylvania. So that is what was going on, and that is something that has become kind of common in American politics. And, if we were to see a year like what we saw here, like if the Democrats were to lose the House popular vote by 3 or 4%, that would be a disaster for them because, they'd lose seats, obviously. They definitely not have control of Congress. But also, because the nationwide environment is tilted towards Democrats, to have a good year, they have to win the popular vote by at least 3 or 4%. To have a decent year, they have to win it by around, at the very least, maybe 1 or 2%. An even national environment is not good for Democrats. A 1 point loss in the national environment is really bad for Democrats, and anything beyond 2 is a disaster for them. Like, in 2014 they lost the national environment by 9. That was a big enough wave on its own. The Republicans gained 40 House seats, and they gained 9 Senate seats. If we had, that was 2014, where the country was less polarized. I'll tell you what, if we had a 9-point Republican wave in 2022, the Democrats would literally be wiped off the map because of how polarized the country has become. They now have such a low floor with their, with how polarized the country has become, that if we saw anything close to 2014 or 2010, they'd be wiped off the map for, maybe years, maybe decades, because of a bad performance. Which is why the Democrats are under a lot of pressure to do well in 2022, because if they do not, it could have very bad long-term implications for the party, because when you think about it, especially in the Senate is long-term. Senators serve 6-year terms, so if you have a really bad election cycle, like if the Democrats lose a winnable Senate race in California somehow, and the Republicans hold the seat for 6 years, that is hurting them in the Senate for the next 6 years. They're going to have to feel the effect of that for the next 6 years at the very least. So that's why this stuff is so important. Now, to take a look at the House majority probability over time, right now the model gives the Republican Party about the Democrats a 45.8% chance of a majority, which would be that the Republicans at a 54.2% chance of a majority, or maybe a 54.1 or something, because this is probability of, that would be really, really weird, but yeah. So the chance of majority over time, as you can see, has kind of changed. They haven't really updated it too much, but right now, I guess a month ago, the Republicans had a 56% chance. They're at 55% chance, so really staying the same. And, when we look at kind of these, this graph, you can call it whatever you want, but essentially, basic, the basic, what do I want to say? I'm at a loss of words here, but to interpret this graph, it's a pretty simple graph. I bet that most of you guys are probably better at this than I am, but, essentially, the more in the middle a result is, the more likely it is to happen, and the most likely result here is kind of around here where we have a narrow Republican victory in the House, and then, you see, distribution of seats where we have, the Republicans would be in this situation, I guess it'll be easier for the Democrats because they're starting off at 0. In this situation, the most likely thing that to happen, I guess, would be the Democrats getting maybe 210 to 215 seats in the House, which is what I believe what their forecast says. The Democrats are getting 215 seats in the House, and then, it gets less and less likely. We have, there's a very small chance the Democrats only have like 90 or 80 seats in the House, because that would be an incredible wave. Same for the GOP. So, yeah. This graph is not really worth talking about, if I'm being completely honest. So, yeah. Now, let's see how accurate this forecast was in the past. So, to take a look at this is the 2020 election forecast. So, I'll take a moment to flex. I was more accurate than they were. They got the state of Florida wrong, and Georgia as well. They got Georgia. I don't like that. I don't want. So they got Florida wrong. They also got Georgia wrong. I only got Georgia wrong. So, haha. But they also got Arizona wrong. Oops. So they got 3 states wrong. So this is an interesting forecast. Wait, they got Pennsylvania wrong too. Wow. Okay. So that means that they actually got 4 states wrong. So that's an interesting prediction. I had not. I actually didn't know this model exists until about 3 weeks ago. And, that is very, very interesting, because I would not have guessed that, Florida would go blue, but Pennsylvania would go red, but, whatever. So, to take a look at a swing state like, this is annoying. Let me just, I just want to see Arizona, okay. I don't want California. This is the annoying thing about this. It covers your whole screen up, so you have to be very strategic about how we go. You're going to try to avoid California. No, I just want to go to Arizona. Here we go. So Arizona, you can actually click on the state, and they gave Trump a 60% chance of winning Arizona, and it really fluctuated back and forth. In October, Biden was favored to win it by about a point, but on election day, they had Trump ahead by 1.5. He lost it by 0.3%. So, that's, it wasn't a terrible prediction. It wasn't like a red eagle politics level of overestimation of Trump, but it was certainly a prediction that, was flawed, because, I'm not really sure how they did their, their modeling, but it clearly was flawed, because they did get the state wrong, and they did overestimate Trump's support here. In fact, they actually significantly overestimated the amount of third-party votes that there were in the state, because Biden won with 49.4% of the vote. They had Trump winning with more than a point less, so, that's kind of weird in my opinion. Now, Florida, they had Biden winning Florida. Let's click on Florida. They gave Biden a 54% chance of winning Florida. Hold on, let me see. How can I do this? Let's see, Florida. There we go. So they gave Biden a 54% chance of winning. Florida gave him it by 0.6%. He was in the lead for most of the time. In fact, they actually had him ahead by 6 in June of 2020, which is pretty incredible. But they had him ahead by 0.6 on election day. So, that's pretty interesting. Obviously, he lost Florida by 3. I'm not going to act like I saw that coming. I had Biden losing Florida by around a point. He lost it by over 3%. So, yeah. Georgia's another state they got wrong. They gave Trump a 52% chance of winning. They had him ahead by 0.1% on election day. So, they weren't terribly off. They only underestimated Biden by 0.3%. They were better in Georgia than I was. I had Trump winning Georgia by, I think, almost 4%, which was a pretty bad prediction, in my opinion. But Georgia, they did all right. And Pennsylvania was kind of their weird miss, I guess. Florida, let's talk election miss Florida. No shade to him. Arizona, a lot of people missed Arizona. Georgia, a lot of people, including myself, missed Georgia. But Pennsylvania, this is kind of their weird call. They gave Trump they only gave Biden a 42% chance of winning Pennsylvania, and they had him ahead for basically all of the election season until literally basically the 11th hour. They had on Halloween night, Trump took the lead in Pennsylvania, and then he never relinquished it. On election day, he ended with a 1-point lead in Pennsylvania. So that is pretty interesting. So I don't know really how they did that, but they did get Pennsylvania wrong. So lastly, in their 2020 House forecast, they overestimated Democrats. Democrats ended with around 221 seats, I believe, right? And they got that wrong. They had them getting 232 seats. So a couple seats you can point out that they missed here. They missed Utah's 4th district. They had McAdams winning there. They missed in Minnesota, for whatever reason, they had the Democrats winning the 2nd district. I don't know. Oh wait, no, oops, wrong thing. My bad. Or was the one that had? Never mind. I messed it up. But in Iowa, they got 2 seats wrong. I got 2 seats wrong as well. So no shade to them. But they had Axne winning, or they had Finkenauer winning by a point. They had Hart winning by 6. She lost by actually 6 votes. So they weren't terribly wrong on that. Although I do think that they actually had the Republican or the Democrats pick. Yeah, they had Rodney Davis losing his seat in Illinois. He won re-election, but at the same time they had Lauren Underwood losing her seat in the 14th district, where I kind of had it reversed, and I ended up calling it correctly. I had Underwood winning while I had Rodney Davis holding his seat. So it's pretty interesting that they had that reversed. In Florida, a really bad call. I think a lot of us got wrong. Of course, Donna Shalala's seat in Florida, I had the seat as likely Democrat. Basically, everyone had her winning. They had her winning by 18%, and then she 18%, and they only gave her opponent Maria Elvira Salazar a 0.5% chance of winning, and Maria Elvira Salazar ended up winning that race. So that that was a really shocking result, I guess you could say. And that was definitely the most surprising House race of 2020. But I don't want this video to go too long. We're going to get into their 2022 House forecast. So yeah. Now, just to go over to some of these states, just starting with Alaska, it makes sense that they'd have the Republicans favored in Alaska. They have Don Young winning by 15. I think he's going to win by a little less, but not a terrible prediction. What's interesting here, though, is that they do have Mike Garcia losing re-election by 3% in California. Now, he could easily lose if he gets drawn out due to gerrymandering, which is more likely than I think him losing in his current seat, because he won in 2020 with Joe Biden on the ballot. He won the Biden district. He won the special election in April of that year, and he also actually has voted with the GOP on a lot of issues. He's not really a moderate. He has voted with the GOP basically all the time. He even voted to overturn the results of the election. So he represents a suburban Biden district, but is still a pretty Republican member of Congress. But for that reason, they have him losing here. I mean, he's in a competitive seat, but I don't think that he would lose if the district boundary stayed the same. For whatever reason, they have Oregon's 4th district really close. It wasn't a landslide in 2020, but it was a likely Democrat seat in 2020 based on margin. They only had Peter DeFazio winning by 2. What else do we have? They had Cindy Axne flipping. Or no, wait, that's the 3rd district. They had her seat flipping. That's interesting. I wouldn't expect her to lose re-election if the boundary stayed the same. They also only gave Sharice Davids a 53% or 52% chance of holding her seat when she won by I think almost 10% last November. Her seat would be pretty solid if she went for re-election. I think she'd have an 80-90% chance of victory. They also, for whatever reason, have these 2 Florida seats down here flipping back to the Democrats. They were, In 2018, they flipped to the Democratic Party by, I guess pretty solid amounts. But in 2020, they were expected to stay with the Democrats. They didn't because because Republicans did so well with Hispanics in southern Florida. And, I don't think they would flip back in 2022. Hispanics could revert to some extent, but I don't think it's likely that these seats flip back to the Democratic Party, especially after all we've seen with, the Florida Democrats going into debt, Joe Biden not having great approval with Hispanics overall. I just don't think it's likely that, we see some massive reversion of Hispanics going back to 2012 numbers. But they do have these seats flipping back. In fact, they have Florida 26, which is the Debbie Marcosol Powell seat. They had her getting her seat back, winning by 10%. They had Donna Shalhoub's seat, the 27th district. They had the Democrats winning by 14 points there, which is very interesting because they did have winning by 18.5% in 2020, but I digress. I guess I'm just being overly critical of the model at this point, but I do think it's very strange that they would have, these two seats flipping back to the Democrats while only giving them a 52% chance of holding a pretty safe seat that's based just only in, I guess Johnson County and Kansas City, Kansas. They also have the New Hampshire's 1st district flipping. For whatever reason, they gave Jared Golden only a 1 in 4 chance of winning re-election in Maine 2nd. That doesn't make any sense, so some of these predictions are kind of wacky, but overall an interesting model. So, if you guys want me to go into this model a little more, I can do that, but overall, they say that this, and I think overall we agree, I said that the GOP has about a 55 to 60% chance of winning the House next year. It is not safe for the Republicans. This is not a normal midterm election. So I think that, when they're saying that, it's a very narrow GOP majority, I can really get behind that. It's just that I disagree on some of these seats, but overall, solid model. I highly encourage you to check it out. I'll pin a link in the comments or something. Remind me because I'm going to forget because I am the king of forgetting to put these links in the comments. But thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed and found it informative, please do leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.